Yali Madat, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar titled The Qasida Tradition of Shia Ismailis, to be presented by Alwais Allah Baksh Jafri. I am Alwaisa Rosina Haji, and I will be the facilitator of the webinar, which will be about a 40-minute long with approximately 20 minutes of allotted time for new TED-style presentation, and about 15 minutes of open conversation between myself and Alwais Allah Baksh. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few things. First, I would like to thank you for taking your time to be with us today, to explore, to be curious, and to be inspired. Thank you to the volunteers and the resources that have made this webinar possible. And thank you, Alwais Allah Baksh, for sharing your time with us today. Before we begin our presentation, I will share a quick bio of Allah Baksh. Allah Baksh Jafri is in his last year of business degree in Major of Accounting from Southern Alberta Institution of Technology. He is a certified enterprise Lean Six Sigma Green Belt from McGill University. Also, he is a graduate of the International Wisene Training Program. As an active volunteer, he supports the team lead of Prairies for Alliance Canada and has served Aga Khan Economic Planning Board for Prairies for last 2 years. He is also a martial artist. Allah Baksh has been exercising Taekwondo for last 15 years and holds an active first Dan black belt from World Taekwondo Federation. He is currently working towards his second Dan black belt. Alwais Allah Baksh in today's presentation will speak about the influence of the Qasida tradition to the Shia Ismailis living in the Central Asian part of the world. Before further ado, Alwais Jafri.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Alwais Rosina, for your warm introduction. This evening, to begin my webinar, let's read an excerpt from one of the profound speeches of Maulana Hazar Imam and the foundation stone ceremony of the Ismaili Center, Dushanbe, Tajikistan. Saturday, 30th August 2003. It's also fitting that the foundation ceremony of a landmark cultural and religious center should coincide with the celebration of the 1000th anniversary of the birth of Sayyidina Nasir Khusraw. The passage of millennium has not diminished Nasir Khusraw's relevance nor dulled the luster of his poetry. It continues to uplift and inspire, reminding us that we are the authors of our own destiny. As he has said, we can be like a poplar tree which chooses to remain barren, or we can let our path be lit by the candle of wisdom, for only with intellect we can seek out all the hows and whys. Without it, we are but trees without fruit. Indeed, the key idea in here is how his poetry has and continues to inspire and uplift us. His poetry has been part of a larger tradition of Qasida, which have played an important role in our Central Asian traditions for hundreds of years throughout their religious understandings and practices. Today, the rituals and tradition of Sayyidina Hakim Nasir Khusraw are alive among the whole Ismailis in Central Asia, Iran, and the northern part of Pakistan. The life and perpetuity of Ismaili religion are left alive from this legacy. These days, this Jamaat cannot be properly explored or understood if Nasir Khusraw's tradition is not considered, because he laid the foundation of the Central Asian Ismaili tradition. And he is the founder and originator of these Qasaid traditions in Central Asia, northern Pakistan and Iran. The tradition of Qasida is counted as one of the highly worthwhile traditions that's recited in all important religious events, which are believed to bring barakat, and it has become an important part of the lives of people from these cultural contexts. This tradition has served multiple purposes in the religious formation and experience of the Jamaat, and I want to explore a few of these purposes in this webinar. So, this evening we will start off with a brief introduction of Qasida, and then look at three important purposes that can help us to think on the importance of this tradition and the role that Qasaid have played in sustaining and nurturing the Jamaat's faith and religious belief throughout history. Specifically, we will be exploring some of the impact that Sayyidina Nasir Khusraw's Qasida have had, and we will explore some of the common themes found in his works. What is Qasida? It's originally an Arabic word. This word has been adopted in other languages including Persian, and sometimes has been translated into the English word called Odd, a long rhyming poem on a variety of themes. The oldest poetic form is called the Qasida, and this term refers to any collection of Farsi poetry. So the plural form of Qasida is Qasaid. This history goes back beyond Nasir Khusraw's time. This has also existed within the field of Arabic literature. There are different scholars who have written Qasida in different subjects for different purposes, like Hakim Sayyidina Nasir Khusraw Balkhi, Saadi Shirazi, Maulana Jalaluddin Balkhi, Rumi, or the well-known Farsi Qasida writers. The recitation of Qasida goes back to before the advent of Islamic civilizations. But the term Qasida is generally understood to refer to Farsi poetry. The Sufis have often used poetry in their practices for the seeking of spiritual annihilation. Fana fillah. As mentioned earlier, we now move towards discussion of the three main of the purposes of Qasida in the context of the Sayyidina Nasir Khusraw's tradition. The first important purpose would relate back to the speech of Maulana Hazir Imam we heard at the beginning, when Hazir Imam is talking about how the poetry of Nasir Khusraw would uplift and inspire. This perspective is almost universal among most of the Central Asian Jamaat and those who trace their roots to around those areas. Since my background is also from that geographical area, it's truly a reflection of my own personal story as well. Qasaid often brings inner strength and comfort to help deal with and overcome challenges or crises. They help us by serving to remind us of the presence of the Imam in our lives. They remind us of Allah's protection and evoke the spirit of love and devotion to Imam al-Zaman. These reminders bring motivation which are filled with inspiration and love that have kept the Jamaat faith during the most challenging times of political instability and insecurity in the region. During these tough times, we would always recite it with the utmost passion and love for the Imam. The Qasida that I'm now going to read is one of the most powerful and impactful Qasida in my own personal life. برو تو دامن مولای خیش از جان گیر به دیگران منگر منکرن دو دین بگرو. The general meaning of this Qasida is that to go and follow your master from your soul and heart. Don't look to others because they have relinquished custody of their own fate over to ignorance. اگر تو به صدق مولای خیش بشناسی هزار مرتبه شکرش کن و به یادش رو. So the general meaning of this qasida would be, if you truly know your master, thank him 1,000 times and feel that gratefulness and embrace it with every fiber of your being. I remember how we would get together when I was very, very young in my childhood. Usually once a month or even once after a couple of months, due to the severe and extreme pressures that were ongoing in terms of political and personal instability at that time, to recite Qasida. And I remember how my family members and cousins would recite Faryad Ras. The title of this Qasida means answer my plea, and it's recited with the utmost submission and admiration to Mawla. That's how we survived and how our faith grew through adversity. Recitation of Qasida is a bandagi for pain and hardship. It's being grateful for the bounties. The recitation itself would bring joy and happiness. Like the Imam said, uplift and inspire. So the second major purpose of Qasida is that it's also an important reminder of our key beliefs and helps deepen our understanding of faith. There were times where there were no Jamaat Khans and the Jamaat had no direct contact for Jamaati services. The tradition of Qasida recitation would transform from hand to hand and heart to heart. It would thus serve to teach our faith and even more so to continually transform and nurture our faith. And as we all know, the key pillar to ethics and to our beliefs is putting faith and knowledge into action. Hakim Nasr Khusraw says, Rahi darazat pesh ast sahamgin ki daru Ta'amu aab nashayat magar ba ilm wa amal. So the general meaning for this would be, in this long path of religion, which can be frightening and encountering challenges sometimes, the only food of knowledge and water, of good deeds or action, will help you arrive at your destination. Indeed, only acquiring knowledge doesn't serve the purpose. Nasr Khusraw insists in here the value of putting faith and knowledge into action. For example, in this world, if someone studies medicine and does not practice it, there is no value to that education. And the same goes for all professionals. As I said before, it's fundamentally important putting faith and knowledge into action, because when we study any profession in our life, it obviously requires lots of time, commitment and sacrifices to accomplish its ultimate goal, and that's to act on it eventually. If after years of dedication and time involvement, we still don't apply it, this is where Nasr Khusraw says that your acquired knowledge without action really doesn't serve the purpose, but leaves you with thirst. This goes to our religious knowledge as well. When we know that each Qasida serves a purpose, and to apply that purpose, we are required to act on it. Otherwise, as Maulana Shah Nizar says in a Qasida, Khatmi Sukhano last Nizar, in hama haifast, ta chan kunam nagma, natuti na hazaram. I paraphrase the meaning, which he says, it's better to stop Nizar, because I'm not a nightingale to sing continuously. Now, to understand these Qasidas, there is a beautiful verse where Sayyidina Nasr Khusraw talks about hearing and recognizing inner secrets and mysteries, where he says, Hadith Nasr Khusraw haqa'iq ast u ramuz ba chashmi sir bishnasu ba goosh aql shinaw. The paraphrase meaning of this would be, Nasr Khusraw's hadith or word is facts and mysteries recognized from the inner eyes and listen from your intellect's ears. Through this Qasida, it's an invitation towards deeper reading and digesting his purpose, and it brings a potential motivation to read and learn more, because each Qasida talks about a certain topic. We will discuss more in depth about personal search in the third and last purpose in today's webinar. In this way, the recitation of Qasida was the fountain or a spring head that irrigates faith, as faith is nourished and kept alive by continuous practices and adding knowledge. Acquiring knowledge and using that knowledge is a key for being informed and up to date. However, without regular practice, there is the risk of forgetfulness or devaluation. Practicing faith, putting faith into action, is a process by which we keep committing to our inner belief and knowledge. So the third and last purpose we will discuss today is how Qasida tradition of Nasr Khusraw encourages us to contemplate higher truths and continue our personal search. Sayyidina Nasr Khusraw shares and articulates his own journey, of personal journey, when he meets the Imam of the time, and where his transformational experience comes from ignorance to spiritual illumination. He says, برجان من چو نور امام زمان بتافت لیل السرار بودم شمس الضحا شدم. When the light of the Imam of the time shone upon my soul, even though I was dark as night, I became the glorious sun. The most important aspect of his endeavor in life is the spiritual journey and enlightenment through the didar of his Imam. Prior to meeting the Imam, he had achieved so much in many fields of endeavor and was a noted scholar. However, prior to meeting the Imam, he equates all of his achievement in philosophy, poetry, and studies in religion to that of a dark night of ignorance. It's an inner reflection that tasks the murid to think deeply. This is knowledge, this is justice, this is piety, this is personal search. In the Quran, Almighty Allah says in Surah 45, ayat number 13, وَسَخْرَ لَكُمْ مَا فِي السَّمَوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا مِنْهُ. He has subjected to you as from him all that is in the heavens and on earth. Now, this verse might be very hard to digest. How can everything be placed or subjected within us in this physical body? Qasida from Sayyidina Nasr Khusraw explores this very concept. درز دریای حقیقت گوهرن در کان توست هم توی غواص معنی در جان جانان توست. The general meaning of this qasida would be that the pearl of the ocean of reality is in the kernel of your existence. You are the diver in the ocean of reality, and the pearl of your soul is your beloved. These verses recall Mawla Ali's statement in Diwani Hazrat Ali to me, where he says, أَتَحْسَبَ أَنَّكَ جُرْمٌ صَغِيرٌ وَفِيكَ أَنْتَ وَالْعَالَمُ أَكْبَرُ. You consider yourself to be a speck, a dot, but within you, the great universe has spread open. Truly, humans have the capacity to grow to the ultimate level of growth internally and externally by continuing to acquire knowledge and practices, or decline to the lowest level of declination from their own negligence. In conclusion, we discussed three purposes to Qasida that were composed by Sayyidina Nasr Khusraw: to inspire and uplift, to remind us of our key beliefs and deepen our understanding of our faith, and finally, to encourage us to contemplate higher truths in our personal spiritual searches. There were times, due to political and social challenges and pressure from religious extremisms, that the Jamaat were not able to practice our rituals, such as Chirag al-Roshan. However, even during these times, the Jamaat was still able to gather together to recite Qasida. This gave much comfort through allowing a way in which we could continuously remember Allah, His prophets, and Imam. So, the Qasida tradition has been a most powerful, impactful pillar in the maintenance of the Jamaat's faith throughout the history. Now, when we reflect back, we can honestly say that Sayyidina Nasr Khusraw's legacy was not bounded within his lifetime 1,000 years ago, but persists to the present day. That's why Maulana Hazrat Imam said during the speech we read at the beginning of this evening talk, that the passage of millennium has not diminished Nasr Khusraw's relevance, nor dulled the luster of his poetry. In fact, his legacy has inspired achievements well beyond their time into the present day. His poetry is timeless and has inspired across generations and continues to inspire people today. We are the evidence of this, for truly his legacy is our identity. I'm very much looking forward to discussing more with Al-Waiza Ruzina on this topic in our questions and answer part.
Thank you, Alwais Alabaksh, for that inspiring presentation and talking about the impact the tradition of Qasida has on the life of the Murids of the Imam in Central Asia. Are you able to talk more about what other impact the Qasidas may have in that region?
Alhamdulillah, I'm very happy to be with you this evening, Rawaiza Ruzina, for having this opportunity of conversation, first of all. It's a great thing that we talk about different purposes as well. Of course, there are many purposes that we couldn't fit in this span of time, but sure, I would definitely talk about the Qasida, that it's not the purpose only praises, but there are criticizes also. But I will definitely think of a Qasida that in the purpose of the tradition that could be relevant towards that area. So the Qasida that we might have all heard it a couple of times, but there is a strong message behind this Qasida that I'm going to first read that Qasida or recite it, so then I'll go to the explanation of it. That Guzinam Quran asto dini Muhammad Hami بود azira guzine Muhammad. So the general meaning of this Qasida is that I have chosen the Quran and Islam because these were the choice of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm certain that by following these two, fate will be the fate of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this verse brings a harmony, a unity among the whole ummah, big picture. It brings inclusiveness and tightens the bonds by each other. This is when our other ummah brothers sometimes used to say, Ismailis are not Muslim. Here our peer, our da'i, our scholar, Sayyidina Hakim Nasir Khusraw expresses his choice, which is the Quran and Islam and the faith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His Wajuddin book also talks about, which is the face of religion, is an ocean of Islamic thoughts. It encompasses Shariat, Tariqat, Haqiqat, Ma'rifat, with objective and reason analysis. All in all, his poetries didn't only serve internally among the Ismaili Jamaat, but also built bridges among our whole ummah, brothers and sisters, where Ismailis are living.
Most certainly. So that's great that Qasidas have also united the Ismaili community with the other communities that they live amongst in the Central Asian part of the world. You spoke about Nasir Khusraw, and we know that Qasida tradition has existed for years, even during the times of Holy Prophet and beyond that. And then the Qasida tradition got its popularity when it was being composed in the Persian languages. And we know that Nasir Khusraw was one of the most popular composers, among others, of the Qasida. And he even challenged the people who were in the courtship writing Qasidas for the kings, right? However, he took his turn and he spoke about writing Qasidas that are more spiritual in nature. Are you able to talk more about the life of Nasir Khusraw?
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for bringing so much insightful from yourself about Sayyidina Hakim Nasir Khusraw. Absolutely right. So in terms of his life, that he was born in 394 Muslim calendar, which is almost around 1,000 years ago in Balkh, and currently this is one of the provinces of Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. So he was well educated and born in a well-established family. So first of all, by the way, he was also an administrator of revenue department with different rulers in his time. So he was a multilingual and well-equipped with different subject matters that led him with this successful career. He himself writes in his Safarnama, travel log, that despite of having a successful career, his one dream transformed the entire course of his life, which ended up with so many lessons, teachings, and that in the shape of knowledge and practices and rituals that left after him. That today, the Central Asian Jamaat, northern of Pakistan, Iran, and east of China is practicing. So his dream took him to an oath, allegiance. He writes very beautifully in his Safarnama, travelogue, that how a voice in his dream transformed his life towards a reality of wisdom and reason search, where he realizes that there is something more in his life. So he's ending up traveling like more than 19,000 kilometers away from his homeland towards so many countries and finally reaching to Cairo. To fast forward 7 years, he's reaching to Cairo and meeting Sayyidina al-Muyyid fi Shirazi, where he finds the assurance of finding the answers he was seeking. So he started to study Ismaili doctrine under mentorship of al-Muyyid fi Shirazi. After a long period of waiting, he meets Imam Mustansir Billah, where I had quoted in my presentation earlier that he said, that when the light of the Imam of the time shone upon my soul, even though I was dark as the night, I became the glorious sun. So having this as his personal journey, subsequently he received the title of Chief of Da'i, head of Ismaili Dawah or Hujjat, and assigned the responsibility of Dawah in the whole Khurasan region, where that region encompasses many, many countries now. He did face lots of struggles when he came back to his homeland, and due to extreme pressures, he had to flee to a valley called Yamgan, Badakhshan in Afghanistan, where he wrote his everlasting books, all of his books, including the Divan.
So you spoke about the Divan. We know that Divan was also presented to the Imam of the time as a gift on behalf of the Canadian Jamaat. Are you able to speak more about the Divan of Nasir Khusro?
Oh, sure. Why not? Actually, this is a very good question. I was expecting to ask this question of Diwan. I put at the end so that I could talk a little bit, also briefly, that this is such an important question. It carries a very high value in the whole Ismaili Qasida tradition, actually. So when Maulana Hazmam came to Western Canada in his Diamond Jubilee visit during 2018, yes, the Canadian Jamaat presented him a gift, which was very, very well received as an exceptional gift by Maulana Hazar Imam. And that was, as you mentioned, Diwan of Nasir Khusro. So Diwan is a Persian word, which means an office or also a book. But Diwan is the collection of his poetries and contains 11,000 verses where it was presented to Maulana Hazar Imam. The beauty of Diwan has a very good beauty. The beauty of Diwan is such that these 11,000 verses are written in order of alphabet. So if anyone wants to search his poetry, it's very easy. Just by knowing its last Persian alphabet, you can find it. Like when you search a word in a dictionary. So that's how easy to search 11,000 verses of Sayyidina Hakim Nasir Khusro. So this Divan has played the most important part in the moral and intellectual history of our Jamaat, because this tradition of Qasida and esoteric understanding of our faith carries through writings of Sayyidina Hakim Nasir Khusro that has carried and kept motivated the Jamaats of Central Asia and other parts, as mentioned before, for over 1,000 years. His legacy remained so vibrant and alive that melts individual's heart by pondering and contemplating with the thinking of each verses that he has quoted in his divan. Now you can imagine, we have only discussed 3 or 4 verses from 11,000 verses. Who can make this math calculation now? That in what percentage we have covered his divan in our today's webinar? 11,000 verses of Qasida and 3 to 4 verses in this limited time. Not even 0.001%. Let's remember that each of his verse is filled with wisdom and thoughts, and truly a topic, a subject to explore. It's a hidden archive in Persian, and hoping one day, these 11,000 verses translate to English, so whoever doesn't know Persian could access this treasure in English.
That's interesting. That's indeed a lot of wisdom. If you were to suggest our audience some books and resources on the topic of Qasida, or even Sayyidina Nasir Khusro, would you have any recommendations?
Sure, 100%. And the only challenge would be is that most of his books are in Persian, and if there would be access to English, that is limited resource. That's something that I was trying to find an English version. So that is something that not available. All of their Qasidas, but yes, there is a book called Shimmering Light where there are a couple of Qasidas has been translated, and if the book of Face of Religion, the Wajhuddin, the Ruby of Badakhshan, that was also translated in English. So for right now, we have a limited resource in English, but hopefully I do look forward for one day the translation of all these books into English, so that I could list for you, like for our Jamaat, like one by one, which books are in English, so that Jamaat who have not access to Persian language, they could access that in English.
Sure. There's another book called it's called Make a Shield of Wisdom by Anne-Marie Schmill, and she talks about Nasir Khusro's poetry and the wisdom behind it.
Right.
And another book I highly recommend. It's very readable. It's the Muslim Devotional and Ethical Literature. It's part of the STEP curriculum, and it talks about various genres of poetry and literature, and Qasidas are part of the collection and descriptions that are included in here.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Well, thank you, Alwais, for your time, for doing so much research on the topic of Qasidas, and inspiring our audience with all those verses of Sayyidina Nasir Khusro's Qasidas. We appreciate your time, and we thank you for doing this for us.
Thank you again for this chat and dialogue that we talked about, and learning from you, Alwais, as well. So I look forward to more conversation like this in the future, inshallah. Thank you.
Inshallah. Thank you, Yali Madat.
Yali.
We thank again Alwais Allah Bakhsh for his time, and we ask the audience to take time to fill out the survey that is available on the link below. If you're joining us via YouTube, please click on the survey link in the description tab below the video, which will route you back to the II Canada page for this webinar, where you can click on Share Your Feedback and found under the title. Finally, I would like to remind everyone about the access line that allows you to access resources, information, or assistance of any type. The number is 1-888-536-3599. You can also visit iicanada.org for further information on how to contact the access line. Thank you, and Yali Madad.